The corruption of the New York Times. The following correspondence occurred via electronic mail in early January 2017 between myself and Jim Dwyer, employee and opinionator at the New York Times, regarding a piece, quote unquote, he had published during the 2016 presidential campaign, which was intentionally abusive of Donald Trump for his claim that on 9/11, thousands of American Muslims were dancing and celebrating the attacks all around the country for the following week or so. Last January, he wrote another abusive piece celebrating that Donald Trump's claim had been debunked. This claim annoyed me. The celebration annoyed me because I saw these people dancing in the streets and celebrating, and I know for a fact that he saw it too. His email address had appeared at the bottom of the page for comments, so I replied to his lies. On January 9, 2017, I emailed this message to Dwyer. Your debunking should be debunked, and it will be debunked. The paper you work for is bunk. Today, the New York Times is the number one source of fake news on this planet. I saw personally, excuse me, Today, the New York Times is the number one source of fake news on this planet. I saw personally, and on TV newscasts, multiple times what could be described as thousands of Muslims celebrating. Yeah, it's so, that response is just so jaded. When the 9/11 attacks occurred, I was working as a computer security engineer at New York Life, located at 27th Street and Madison Avenue. After the first tower was hit, some employees went out to Madison Avenue, and looking south, we could see the first tower burning and then falling. And then we could see the second tower get hit. I believe this was a Tuesday, if I recall. We were told by New York Life management to take the rest of the week off and to return to work the following Monday unless advised not to. So I took the opportunity to do some shopping. I went shopping in Bay Ridge that week. I went there on my bicycle. So I was going in and out of different streets, riding around, having fun, as well as going shopping. And I saw at least hundreds of Muslims living in that neighborhood, jumping, shouting, and celebrating in the streets of Bay Ridge. He wrote back, any contemporaneous documentation of this? That response pissed me off because it's so jaded. I mean, these people at their core are they don't believe in anything anymore. They are so pessimistic and worse. I mean, the jadedness, he's not, if he was honest, he would say something like, well, what can you tell me? How much detail can you go into about what you saw that would convince me that you're not crazy and you're not lying? So I wrote the following in reply to this smart-ass idiot. Sir, let me ask you a question. Did you witness or hear of any celebrations by members of any of our nation's Arab or Muslim communities, either live or in television news reports? Did you witness any? If you say no, you're either 16 years old and too young to remember, or you are doing your job well, which is to sell advertising for your employer by any and all means available, including not just misrepresenting the truth, but taking a dump on it. Therefore, this makes you a Goebbelsian propagandist. In the 3 or 4 days after the 9/11 attacks, I personally witnessed Arabs in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, celebrating live when I was shopping there. Contemporaneously, I saw celebrations by Arabs and/or Muslims in Jersey City, New Jersey, reported on New York One. Also, contemporaneously, I saw further video of Arabs and/or Muslims celebrating in Arab communities around the country, in Chicago, Detroit, and Los Angeles in particular, and of course in many Arab countries. These celebrations were reported on multiple evening news broadcasts by your big corporate media outlets. I have no doubt that if one raided any of their tape film vaults, one would find these materials stashed or hidden away. Or maybe they hid them in bank safety deposit boxes or on external hard or flash drives to conceal this from the public and make the people making these claims like Trump look dishonest or hateful. Either way, they must exist, or at least once have existed, because I saw these events with my own eyes. I remember them very clearly. Unless I am in reality a brain sitting in a vat with scientists pumping these images into my head, My memories are quite clear and accurate. If you really wanted to know the truth on this question, you would start contacting television stations and network corporate offices to find someone who knows something about this. I would be willing to bet my left testicle that there are plenty of employees roaming around the carpeted cubes of these network offices who know about these celebrations and would talk. If you had any desire to be honest, you would investigate to find out for yourself or would encourage one or two of your colleagues to pursue this. But of course you won't. And even if you did, no way in hell your editor would allow the truth to go on, would go to press at the New York Times, and you'd probably be fired too. It is easy to understand the motives behind these celebrations. The Arabs have a dogmatic and self-destructive hatred of Israel, and we are Israel's biggest supporter worldwide. Therefore, from their perspective, or their perspectives, they have reasons to resent the American states united, us, and many of them do. So why shouldn't they celebrate when somebody strikes back at us, especially when that someone is an Arab or a Muslim, and acting on behalf of their ethnic identities? I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying it is. I mean, I don't blame them for being angry at Israel and at us. That's just the way they feel, you know? It's like your feelings are your feelings. I mean, you can't make yourself feel a feeling if you don't feel it. At least not immediately, but if at all over time. What is not so easy to understand is how people in your profession can be so cynical and dishonest as to play these games. You're playing games. You are playing games with reality and with the truth, and you damn well know it. Never in the history of American journalism has there been such a systematic and coordinated program of total lies, partial lies, slick deceptions, and mind manipulations, and the most egregious propaganda campaign of the part of formerly reputable news sources, as there was during this previous presidential campaign. The controversy over the celebrations is just one minor angle on the overall propaganda campaign. What scares me the most is that many of you believe your own propaganda. That's scary. Don't you people understand that you are taking the final steps toward 1984? Seriously, I think you do, but you just don't give a shit. But you probably dream that this will help my retirement fund, but any of these dangers that I'm helping cause won't come around until after I'm finished with my retirement. In other words, when I'm dead. I think you do, but you just don't give a shit. But your delusions about the election came back to bite you, didn't they? Through group politically unconscious wishful thinking. You misrepresented the polls to yourselves as much as to the masses. But the polls came back to bite you, didn't they? Return of the repressed. But now you have made the science of survey research polling for all practical purposes obsolete, to whatever extent they were ever scientific to begin with. Moving forward, no one will trust them ever again. The response will be something to the effect, we don't care what the polls say, remember what happened in 2016 election. How are you people going to properly propagandize your chosen pseudo-liberal candidate in the future without the abuse of opinion polls? You people lack the wisdom and the foresight to appreciate the harm you are doing to the country's future. We must accept the fact that the Democrat Party and all their small L liberal allies are no longer a political party. You are a nihilist movement. We must also accept the fact that the New York Times is no longer a newspaper, it is a cartoon strip. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. Note made at a later date. So, a few days after I emailed this to this guy, Jim Dwyer, I started hunting around for more stuff that he may have written as a response, and trying to disrespect me, trying to be disrespectful, didn't reply to my reply, but just published. I tried to see if he published anything new on the subject or any kind of response to my arguments and facts. This is what I found. What was the final dispensation of this communication? Several days later, I looked for his article on the internet. Both Dwyer's articles had disappeared completely from the internet. I could not find a trace of either of these writings either. So what happened was, when I was looking for new stuff from Dwyer, I discovered that the old stuff had been deleted. Those two editorials or op-eds or whatever the fuck they were by Dwyer that I writ in response to disappeared from the internet. They took them down. And I don't know. I didn't check to see for how long. I think 2 weeks later I tried to find them and they were still down. So something I said got to them, at least for a short amount of time. Anyway, thank you for listening.